Hi everybody. My name is John Andrew Williams. I am so happy to have Natalia Arredondo here. She is a PhD candidate from Newcastle University. She has done a lot of work with Sugata Mitra on the school in the cloud. She is a primary researcher on the project, and I know they're also opening up a program in New York City she just told me about. So I'd like to welcome Natalia to Academic Life Coaching and to just get your ideas on what you see as the future of education based on the work that you're doing on the cutting edge program in the school in the cloud, which I've blogged about before. So welcome, Natalia. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So I'm curious, what from your perspective, what do you see as the main takeaways that the school in the cloud is going to give to other pieces, other kinds of education?
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me to talk today. Such a pleasure to share our experience, which is very exciting. And in regards to your question, well, it's already changing. Technology has put us into a new paradigm that we are trying to figure out. And as of right now, we're just trying to see what the future is going to hold for jobs that we don't even know or that haven't been created. So that's the new challenge in education. From the research perspective, it's another challenge as well, because the theories that we currently have are not useful for the new challenge. So this is all groundbreaking work that we are doing, is that there is a big shift. So part of Sugata's work, and there's many different components to the school in the cloud, which is very typical of Sugata. So we have something called the Granny Cloud, which are grannies that beam themselves to talk to children around the world. We also have Soul Central, which is the Institute for Research in Souls. We have the School in the Cloud platform that connects people who have heard Sugata speaking and who have initiated their own souls without us being aware of that. And I think that's where the power of this approach comes, is that it is coming from the ground up, from people who are just very curious to know how this approach works, and since it integrates technology so well with education. So so far what we have found out is that as of right now, like Sugata says, knowing is obsolete, because you can answer many questions that before we had to memorize in 2 seconds. So there is no need for that anymore. So what the future holds, it's a future of big questions, big wonderings that might begin with a teacher, might begin with an adult, but that ultimately are for the kids to ask. So just to give you an example, the other day I was with a 7-year-old who lives in the Andes. So he asked me, how come when I go to the beach, it's hot, and how come when I go to the mountains, it's very cold, if the mountains are closer to the sun?
That's a great question. that is a good question.
It is an excellent question. Exactly. And then there was a 5-year-old also who asked, are we real? Yeah. It doesn't get more philosophical than that. So try to Google that and let me know if you find the answer.
Yeah, so if we Google, are we real? What comes up, right? Let's see. What comes up?
It depends on who's typing, right?
Yeah. Are we real? Are we real yet? It's one of the Google ones that they want to have.
Exactly.
Yeah. This is exciting, because I think from my perspective, from a life coaching perspective, right? This is what we do. We are basically trained to ask questions.
Exactly.
So it's very exciting to hear the future of education is going to be about questions, because that's what life coaching does. What's that aha moment that you have seen, or the particular characteristic of students that you have seen just from your contact with them that seems to make the biggest difference in the students who thrive in this kind of environment?
Okay, so just yesterday I was doing a SOL in the school in Harlem that is going to be Harlem, New York, that is going to be hosting the SOL lab. And we were the class is it's fourth grade, and the children are not performing on grade level in reading. They're not. Like, most of the students are not. They're actually performing below level. So we asked a question. How the question was, how does is the needle and the compass turns, right? Mm-hmm. So we just asked that question. We sent the children off. They tried to figure out the answer, and they kept coming back with more questions. They were saying, "But what is a compass? I don't even know what that is." Yeah. Or why every time I Google this, I find the word magnetism, right? So the aha moment comes when all those things that you set up in a lesson plan to teach, they're already trying to figure out just because you asked that question. So that's a big deal. And then the second big deal for me, especially for my research, is that these kids who are not reading on level, they figure it out through reading together. So they are reading at a much higher level than expected, right?
Yeah.
Those are big things that as a teacher you're not aware, because you're always following the curriculum and assuming that the children need a very simple text, too difficult to be able to learn how to read. And this is just happening naturally in us all.
So essentially you're setting the stage for them to, instead of be passive learners, to be active learners.
Exactly. And also to use all the critical thinking, problem solving, synthesizing, all the things that we hope it happens in schools are happening with asking just one question and making sure they have the internet and they work together. Now, the kids that thrive in this kind of environment, in my opinion, I haven't found a kid that cannot. Okay, and this is why. When we send the kids off with minimal rules, like you can switch groups, you can see what others are doing. When you leave it so open so that they can interact with all the skills they have, they're always going to thrive. So just yesterday we had a kid who seemed to not be paying attention, and he was just laying back and looking around. And the teacher was like, "So what do you do when somebody's not engaged?" I was like, "Well, first you wonder if he's learning or not, right?" Yeah. So when we went to ask, he's one of those kids that just sit in the back and observe everything, but he's already thinking. So when we asked him, so what is a compass? He was able to say, it's something to measure this and this and that. So he was able to give the answer. So it's not that he was not engaged, it's that that's his style. That's how he is. While the girl next to him was like telling everybody what to do, and drawing pictures and typing. So it's just different kinds of styles. And that's what I like, that SOLS celebrates every single child for what they are.
Mm. Honestly, that just makes my heart so happy to think of this whole system, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's completely, it flips everything.
It does. It changes everything.
The paradigm is flipped.
Exactly.
So I'm curious about your background. Like what's your background, and then what led you to follow this field?
Okay. So I have a master in special education, and I was a teacher for 20 years. In special education. So that implied working with kids with autism or Down syndrome, or kids with language difficulties, but in different settings, sometimes integrated, sometimes by itself, and in different places. So one day I had a dual language class, which means that the children learn in both languages, in English and Spanish. And in that setting, we have kids with special needs and kids who are typically developing. Mm. So I saw Sugata's talk, and my school was an inquiry-based school. So we developed different inquiries with the kids. We follow questions, but in a more guided way than Sugata's approach. Mm-hmm. But when I saw his approach, I was like, I have to try it. And the first time I did, I was like, this is it. I had been looking for doctorates for 5 years, and I said, I found it. Yeah. So I emailed him and I said, I really, really, really want to work with you. And he said, okay, come along. And I dropped everything. I dropped my job and everything I had in New York, and I moved to Newcastle to pursue the research with him. Yeah.
Okay. That's wonderful. And so who was the teacher you had in high school or college who made the biggest impact on you? And where did you go to school?
Well, it wasn't it wasn't a school teacher. It was actually my father. He's a very curious person. He's always wondering about things. So he used to have his job from 8 to 5. He's a civil engineer, right? But when he was not at his job, he was always like he had something going on. So he had experiments. So he had like animals at home that he was observing their behavior for, and he never imposed any of that on us. He just invited us. So that goes very well along with Sugata's approach, like being just in love with learning and asking questions and wondering about things. And that influenced how I was a special education teacher and how I became part of this whole project. Yeah.
Natalia, I'm just so thankful for your time. And so what's the best way that people could follow along with this project, and what resources if they want to learn more?
Yes, so you can go to the schoolinthecloud.org. Mm-hmm. And it has many components. You can run your own SOL in your own school, in your own community center, or you can become a grant in the cloud, which you beam your presence through Skype. Once a week, you donate your time to talk to different children around the world. But all the information about how SOLs are and about our research and our blogs are in the schoolinthecloud.org. Okay. And my email is there if anybody wants to chat or if they need help with anything. I'll be more than happy to help.
That's fantastic. And then so the school in New York. So are you going to be at the opening in New York?
Yes, I'm going to be in the opening. I'm actually part of building the lab as we're speaking. Yes, so we're going to have Sugata coming and doing a demonstration on SOLs, and we have Ted is going to be with us, and I think PBS is reporting as well.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
So yes, it is. We're very excited.
TED Prize. It's kind of a big deal when you win the TED Prize.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. Well, thank you so much, Natalia, again for your time today.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. Very exciting.
So much fun. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.